Hey, serenade, serenade, serenade. Hey, welcome back to the Illustrious Podcast. It's your boy Mar, back in the building. Like I said, man, welcome back to the Illustrious Podcast, man. It's your boy Mar, once again. I'm gonna keep repeating myself, I don't know why. That's what I do though. Oh man, it's been a minute. I ain't recorded a podcast in about almost 2 months, yeah. It's been a lot going on too, on top of that. So I was missing out on a lot of good topics that I would have wanted to talk to y'all about and get into, get groovy with. Whatever you want to, what adjective or verb you want to put in front of getting your thoughts out. Cause you know, I'll be watching out. Like all summer I had time, you know what I mean? I wasn't stressed out about nothing. I was just doing what I had to do, working and raising my daughter. So, you know, you get time, you like, hey man, I got extra time on my hands. I'm gonna do this podcast, man. Get these words out, and I told y'all I wasn't gonna quit. So, you know what I mean? I took a month and some weeks off, you know what I mean? Me and my lady, we've been discussing this wedding thing, so that was a part of the reason why I had to take a little break, because planning for a wedding 2020, that's a year and a half apart. But you know, with a woman, she want to know exactly what you want to do. She gonna have her plans out, and you gonna have to stick to it or get to it and start mapping yourself out. So all that got involved. So while that was going on, family issues, you know, going on as well. My brother, he about to get open heart surgery soon, so that took a little energy out of me, you know, having to go see him and check on him at the hospital. And when he get out the hospital, me and him going to, you know, make sure he get his prescriptions or he getting his glasses and all this other stuff. There was a lot going on, you know what I mean? I could have juggled it. I could have did the podcast, but honestly, you know, I was drained creatively. I didn't know how to come back and just talk and just get it out. And that's something that we're gonna talk about today, because I ain't even I was sitting here, I had notes for the past 6-7 weeks of what we was gonna talk about on this podcast or what I was gonna bring to y'all, and I was like, dang man, it's been that long since I did a podcast. I'm bugging. I had to get back on my grind, because you know what I mean, this is not, it's the art, man. This is my expression. If I can't express myself, what am I doing? So you know what I mean, I was going through some things, you know, mentally. You frustrated about your family situation. You know, I can only help my brother so much, as far as I can't take off work and help him rehabilitate when he does go through the surgery. You know what I mean? This is my oldest brother at that. This ain't, you know, not to say another brother doesn't matter, but this is my oldest brother though. You know what I mean? He watched me, he raised me a little bit streetwise, as far as he took me out in the streets at 6 years old and was like, hey man, this is what it is, man. Don't be out here, because this is the consequences of being out here like that. And he was out there like that, you know what I mean? I'm from Newark, so if you're from Newark and you know about Brick City, you know about a lot of places, you know, like Newark similar, you know what I mean? Still in the 90s, all they did was steal cars, ride around. If you ever watched this movie called Jersey Drive, that describes you what the hood was like back in the 90s. My brother was one of them cats, you know, he rode around stolen cars and all that. I've seen him sell drugs and everything, but I never held it against him. He always, when that part of his life was over as a young man, he got older, he went and got a job, he always worked, he kept his money to himself. He had his vices like everybody got their vices. So during that time, you know what I mean, he telling me this about him having to have surgery, heart surgery at that, and this is not a regular surgery, this is open heart surgery. You got to crack your chest open. They got to get to this thing. We have a flashback. You know, my father died 8 years ago this year, 2018. He graduated. He died in 2010. I was just turned 21. 2 weeks after my 21st birthday, my father died. Can't be too sad about it. He raised me till I was 21 years old. Can't even be mad at God or anybody for that one. My little brother was 13 when he died. So who you think missed out more on having my father around? Even though I was the one always under him, you know, my father loved my little brother like he was, you know, like any father would love a child that they raise him. So it was a difficult moment when I had to sit there and listen to my brother. He's not one that's fearful of death, which is odd to a lot of people, but he's been through a lot in his life. So his perception of death is totally different from other people's. He's like, hey, I'm here, I'm going type thing. But I could tell in the way he's talking, it's fear a little bit in there, like a little bit of fear, a little bit of might not make it, or what's the end result when we talk about what the doctor said, or what the nurses are saying. I hear the fear, and I see it in his eyes, because I know, you could be the toughest gangster you want. The inevitable is, we all perish, we all leave this body, temple, whatever you want to call it. So a lot of that was directed me getting back in tune with my family, my brothers, my mother, just talking to them consistently, not using work and family, my own family, as an excuse to not talk to them. And it was just a reminder, of my father. We having these conversations about wills and everything like that, because doctor's like, hey, if he don't pull through, we gotta know what we gonna do if he on the table, and we could hook him up to the tubes, and if he don't want that, we need you to decide that. That's on me, because my older brother and my oldest brother, they ain't best friends, you know what I'm saying? They cool, but they ain't best friends. Me and my brothers have the oddest relationship, because it's three of us that's tight, and then the one that's in the middle, he's older than me, so he's not really in the middle, but we say the middle because it's four. So he's the oddball out at times, and he makes himself the oddball out. So with all that, I'm just getting into, what was going on the whole time and everything. You got to get this stuff out. As a black man in America, and for black women, Hispanic, everybody of color, get these thoughts out. You gotta get these thoughts out. You gotta get these emotions out. You gotta talk to somebody, psychiatrist, whatever, because you need the release, the guilt, everything that goes along with depression, or suicidal thoughts, or just life in general bringing you down to a degree. You gotta live in your truth and live in your moment. You gotta take all that anger, all that hate, and all that, and you gotta work that around. You gotta turn that around and work it around. However you gonna work it, you gotta bring it. Cause you never know, man. You never know. Talk to somebody who actually want to listen. You might be going through something that they went through, or they might be going through something similar to you, in the sense of they know how you feel, even if it's not directly. Send it to the same action that you had. Like I was watching earlier, one of my favorite podcasts to watch on YouTube and listen to is Did You Miss Me, with the comedian D-Lay and Billy Sorrells. Dudes is dope, funny as hell. They tell stories about their life, now and the past, all that. You get a real glimpse of, even though they famous to a degree, you get a realism from them as well, where they tell you stories where you could relate to, and they don't just tell them. They bring friends on, and friends tell, people they feature on there, they tell their stories and stuff, or how they met each other and all that, and it's dope. And today I'm watching it, and it's like one of the probably top 5 episodes, podcasts that I've seen and so far in the podcast era. D-Lay, he lost his father. I mean, he didn't lose his father. He's about to lose his father. His father's dying soon, so he's having these conversations with his father about, what are we gonna do at the funeral, and your will and everything, will and testament and all that good stuff. Mind you, his father has never been in his life until now, for the most part, as an older man, and his mother died when he was in 9 months, so he never really got to know his mother. He was raised by his grandmother. Grandmother died when he was 12, and then he was raised by his aunt. A lot of things go into that, you know what I mean? He became a great man he's a comedian. He was in the army. He did a lot of stuff that some people probably wouldn't be able to do, even with 2 parents being raised the right, however you call it, the right way, or whatever, the traditional way, whatever you want to call it. And you could see the emotion in his eyes, you know what I mean? He was hurt. He was talking, and he was telling his story. He was telling his truth and living in his truth about how he needed that recognition from his father for all, in the reason behind why his father didn't want to be a part of his life. Like, outside all the excuses, what else can you tell me about? Like, what made you not want to be a part of my life? I thought that was dope. And then you had Billy Sorrells, he told the story about his mother and father got divorced, and that messed him up because his mother left his father, and his mother went on and lived her life, and she came back and forth, of course, but you know what I mean, it was painful for him to see his mother go after being raised with his mother for 10 years. Now his mother and father live in separate places, and now you got to deal with going back and forth to who house or whatever the case may be. But it's all in that they telling the story of, you know, their trials and tribulations, and the same token of them telling the story, you hear D-Lay saying, hey man, you know, I just need that closure, and then Billy comes up and says, you know what I mean, I'm having that issue with one of my kids now. I'm trying to raise them, but the mother won't let me because, you know, one of his baby mothers he's not married to, so it's a difficulty in that situation. So it's kind of like full circle, like your one of your best friends, his father is dying, and he's dealing with the fact that he can't raise his son. You get to see all the anger and grief of you not being able to raise your child wholeheartedly by whatever means or by any means to do so. So you see what this man turned out to be, your best friend, one of your best friends. He turned out to be a great man, but there's so much turmoil in his inner thoughts because he never understood why his father wasn't there for him at certain moments. Now you are flabbergasted, exhausted, all in the situation that you're dealing with your child's mother that's not allowing you to raise your son or daughter, and now you have to do even more for that fight now because you see the end result. This grown man is broken still because of a promise that his father never gave him, and that other people watered to make it go from being a small plant to being a giant oak in a sense. So I was watching that and I was like, man, I gotta do a podcast today, man. I gotta do an episode today, man. I gotta talk, get these frustrations out, because people don't talk no more. Everybody talks but nobody listens. Let me put it like that. We don't really listen to each other, we just talk. Everybody just talk. Everybody wants something to say. Everybody want to have a point, but you ain't really saying nothing. Everybody want to be a pastor. Everybody want to be a preacher. Everybody want to revel. Everybody want to have their thoughts of the day. And hey, listen to me. And it's not bad, because sometimes you get some gems in there. Some people talking and you listening. And you like, hey man, you dropping some knowledge. Talk your talk. And some people talking and you like, I wish you shut the fuck up. You don't know what the fuck you talking about. You just talking. And then we get to this point of Kanye West, and everybody knows what's going on with Kanye. He's doing his promotion, I guess, for his album that's coming out soon. But honestly, Kanye always been an attention grabber type of person, you know what I mean? If you really pay attention to his whole career, I've been a Kanye fan since day one, since I heard him on Guess Who's Zach on the hook, and I was like, oh, this dude, and then looking up, it produced the track Kanye, and I'm like, oh man, that dude sound familiar. Started listening to other stuff that he was dropping from Chicago, because it's in the mixtape days where you could find tracks everywhere on LimeWire and all this other stuff. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, dang man, this dude dope. And you hear, even on the first album, he talk about, you know what I mean, he was always arrogant, low key, you know what I mean, he talks about not getting recognized because he wanted to be a rapper, but his beats was hot and that's why everybody messed with him and all this other stuff. He was always looking for that gratification as a way of like, hey man, accept me because I'm trying to be a part of this, you know what I mean, instead of just being himself to a degree. He was always looking for that gratification. Remind you, Kanye had a very funny upbringing. When he talks about it, he was raised in China for a little bit because his mother, then he was raised back in the hood again because his father. So he grew up in a split family home, but his parents were both active in his life, and he still had mental issues when his mother died. And I say all that to bring up the fact that being a parent entails more than just raising a child and keeping it moving, or being absent in your child's life. Like, I try my hardest to always, give my daughter inspiration to talk, whether it's early in the morning when I see her when she wake up, or later on in the day when she about to take a nap or whatever. I always say, hey, you beautiful. beautiful, you're amazing, you're a great person, whatever I could say. I love you. I don't know what I would be without you. Just so she can have a kind of like, I don't want to say a better upbringing than me, because I was raised, by my mother and father. Love my mother and father to death. Everybody had their issues. It was never no abuse or anything, but everybody had their issues. My pops used to be out here. He loved to gamble. That was his thing. You know what I mean? So he go out and gamble. I went with him a couple times when I was younger, a little kid, but my pops till 2-3 o'clock in the morning. He gambling, he hitting, and it's all good. Sometimes he lost, and it wasn't like he was mad that he lost. He just like, hey, it is what it is. I'll get it back. My mother, on the other hand, she wasn't a gambler. She hated that shit. So she like, I don't want no parts of that. Don't be losing my money, because we got bills to pay. And sometimes when he hit, it was all good. And when he didn't hit, she'd be all in his ass. And that's the lesson I learned from that was, hey, man, you can't gamble on everything, man. You got to make sure that money there first of the month. You got to make sure them bills is paid on time, because she don't care about none of that. She want them bills paid. She want to make sure she got food to eat. She want to make sure these kids got food to eat, clothes on their back. That's all that matter. So, I used to be going to my house. She lived in the projects. You know what I mean? And I learned lessons there too. You know what I'm saying? I'd be in the projects with my cousins, and you know what I mean, just chilling. You know what I mean? Life is more simple with being with them sometimes. I'm like, hey man, it's always something to do around here. You know what I mean? In my hood, certain time niggas gotta go in the house. And I lived not too far, like 10-15 minutes away from my house, who lived in the projects. And it wasn't nothing like that. It wasn't nothing negative. And so basically, what I was trying to get to the point was, parenting definitely matters in life. Whether it's your grandparent, your mother and father, aunts and uncles, parenting is substantial to the growth of a person. Just knowing that they're there for you. Some cases, some people, their parents die. That's understandable. That's life. That's a part of life. You were born, your mother died, your father died, however they did, and then you were raised by your family, whoever it be, maybe like say aunts, uncles, cousins, whoever. But if that person raised you as their own, and in a way to manifest you into a person that is strong enough to withstand certain things and not leave you questioning certain things, that's an amazing feat, to be a parent, to guide a child into adulthood and not have them regret their upbringing to a degree. Like, I wouldn't be able to function as a person if I wasn't able to raise my daughter, because I would be like, it's someone out there that shares my DNA, who has my character traits to a degree, who needs me in some aspect of their life. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like just, hey, you wake up one day and it's like, hey, I don't want to be a dad, I don't want to be a mom no more. You have those moments, of course, because you're upset or whatever the case may be, whether it's your first child, last child, however it go. People go through those spells of depression and aggravation, or just not feeling up to the task. It happens all the time. So I'm not going to discredit anybody and say, hey, you're wrong for thinking like that, or be negative towards those people that happen to, because it happens to everybody at some point in their life. You go through something and you just feel down about it. But back to the Kanye thing, as far as what he's saying, a lot of stuff he's been saying lately is just stuff that he's always been saying, but it's not geared towards black people or helping the black community. And it's him as being a representation of hip hop, it makes a lot of people upset. So we have to differentiate certain things. Like, it's some people that chill with Kanye every day probably, and they like, yo man, you can't be mad at him for talking the way he talk, and he expressing himself, that's his expression. And there's people outside that circle who still love Kanye and are cool with him and talk to him on a consistent basis or daily basis, however you want to put it. And they like, hey man, that's just Kanye being Kanye. You know what I mean? You got to hear him out. And there's people who have no kind of contact with him every day, or don't understand him to a degree, who never really understood him at all. And they look at him as, hey, you need help, my man. Say, there's something wrong with you. Now, truth be told, everybody got that one friend that's a little off. You know what I mean? Try to be there for him, try to take care of him by any means. try to do your best to be like, hey man, I got your back. Kanye is that friend. You know what I mean? He's a friend on the edge. And it's not saying like he's suicidal or he's crazy, but he's always been not able to fully express himself verbally. His communication has not always been the most amazing. Even when he was standing in front of the camera, he said, George Bush doesn't care about black people. That moment was like, wow, that's crazy. But it would have took him a whole 2 hours to explain himself or why he thought they didn't. Why George Bush didn't like black people. When he ranted about Beyonce at the VMAs and he took the award away from Taylor Swift, same thing. He said a little speech, but in the moment, people was like, what the fuck? Like, yo, bro, you're not saying nothing. You're just saying Beyonce had one of the top 5 videos. Yeah, we know that. She's an amazing artist. We know that. But you ain't break down like he wasn't able to verbally explain why he went up there and did that and why he felt what he felt. He just did it and that was the end of it. And later on down the line, they forgave each other, whatever the case may be. Cool. And it's the same thing with this mega hat situation. Like, yeah, the mega hat carries a lot. We know. If we know it's white people, the rednecks, and it's white people with the collars on that. They feel like Donald Trump is the way to be, and all that other stuff that follow behind that. Now, if you want to say hip hop represents the culture of the black community, Latino community, and the urban community within the whole, the hood or whatever the case may be, you have to take the good with the bad, and Kanye is the good with the bad. You know what I mean? Like, some of the stuff he says, you're gonna look at him and be like, why are you talking, bro? Like, you not the person to be telling me this, because you're not the most eloquent and well-versed person in information. So why are we talking or listening to him? He's not going to give us anything but cause more trouble. He cause more explanations. But once again, the conversation is being sparked and opened. At the end of the day, the door is being opened. I mean, I like how the door is being opened. I mean, I like the way it's being opened. We may not understand why is it important to have it open, but it's open. Boom, he opens the door for the conversation. He gives us the reason to ask, hey, if we can distance ourselves from Kanye because we feel like, oh, you don't represent us no more because you talking crazy, or you getting down with the young dudes that's rapping now and doing all this pill popping music and stuff, and you getting down with them and you rapping with them and you just trying to make money and you just trying to be seen. Whether that be true or not, it is what it is. I mean, he's a musician. He's here to make this money and do what he do and get in and get out like everybody else would do. Yeah, I mean, it's certain people that wouldn't do it. I mean, you got cats like Colin Kaepernick, Eric Reed, who played with Colin Kaepernick on the 49ers, and they was willing to take that L and not get paid from the NFL because they still behind their principles. That's what's up. Muhammad Ali did it back in the day too. My man, I can't remember his name right now, because this is me rambling off. He wasn't one of the people I wanted to mention, but he played in the NBA. Now he playing the Big Three. Muslim dude. He didn't want to stand up for the national anthem either at one point in time, and he took that L, not being backballed out the NBA. That was the life he took on, and he said it is what it is. Oscar Robertson, being an NBA Hall of Famer, he talks a lot about what's going on in the community and how black people still struggling and things like that. And he talks about the times how he hated playing basketball because he had to deal with racism to a certain degree. And he was playing in the 60s and early 60s and early 60s through the 70s. He's seen a lot of that. So it's people out here willing to lose value as far as monetary value over their principles. And I'm not saying Kanye out here like, oh nah, I can't do this, or whatever the case may be. He needs to stand up for us, and I hate Kanye and all this. Hey man, I'm not gonna say I hate nobody. Everybody got their right to express themselves however they express themselves. Once again, like I always say on this podcast, you can express however you want to express, but you got to be ready for the ramifications of how you express your opinion and how you express yourself. And that's what Kanye is reaping from the black community and other people who who don't necessarily agree with him. And T.I. brought up a funny point in the Hot 97 interview he did the other day. He was like, yeah, we need to stop, black people need to stop throwing people away and throwing stuff away. And that's true, because this is what we do. We get money, we move out the hood for righteous reasons. One, because when you get paid a lot of money, or when you're making a lot of money, other people see that and they envy you and they want to take from you. That's a flaw in us all, you know what I mean? It's envious people out here who want to see other people get hurt for their own monetary gain and do what they got to do to get paid. It's understandable. It's a fucked up trait, but it is what it is. Crab in a barrel mentality. Now, once you move out the hood, you don't go back. You don't even send a kite or nothing, because you're done. You know, family members asking you for money, not understanding that, hey, you just got this, let you build on it, and once you build on it, you might be able to throw something back to somebody else, and, you know, the chain reaction happens from there. In our community, we're not able to grasp that, because it's harder to understand. Like, we come from poverty, and we are advertised the riches and the glam. You see what I'm saying? So, like, you see a rapper come up, you see an NBA player, NFL player, golf, whatever sport that person played, or actor, actress, comedian, come up and they filled of art. And even businessmen, you know, they strike it rich with the idea and they get paid now, and it's the same effect. You know what I mean? You get to this money and people automatically assume that you owe them something because they're your friend, they're your family, or whatever. And then it's every community it happens, but in the black community, it's more plagiarized as far as like how they, not even plagiarized, it's portrayed in the media and social media and every facet that this is us. We're thirsty for fame, we're thirsty for the money, we're thirsty for recognition. And it's not a thirst, honestly, it's a condition. We've been conditioned to this for so long. Like Eric Reed, the football player, you know, he just recently signed with the Carolina Panthers. He even said it, you know, we've been conditioned to the worst way possible of a structural system. We came in this country in the year 1619 as slaves, and from 1619 until now, next year will be 2019, that'll be 400 years, and through all that oppression, yeah, you get your few bright spots where there's a lot of black people getting money and doing their thing, and then it's a lot of, and people say, oh, well, it's white people going through these travesties too. Understand that. We know that wholeheartedly. It's white people out here that live in trailer parks and stuff like that, and they don't own no land or whatever the case may be. But what happened with that is, it's like the rednecks and the Dixie lovers and they that don't like black people and all this other stuff, they have cousins and friends that are the white collar workers, and they got their button up shirts on and they acting like everything's all good, even though they're in the office with a bunch of multicultural people, multiracial people, and they hate everybody in the office who ain't like them. You know what I mean? We don't see that though. We just see, oh, if you're a redneck, you're a redneck. But just like when you seen them white boys with the tiki torches in Virginia, they had on khakis and a white collar shirt. You looking like, hey man, that motherfucker look like Jim Harbaugh little brother, or that look like Jonathan that works in sales, or that looks like Martin who works in the mailroom, or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? We've been conditioned to not see the bigger picture. You know what I'm saying? Structurally in society, the black family, the black experience has always been frowned upon, something to not embrace. And that's why when you see us coming together in this time and age now, where it's like, nah, you know what I mean, we gotta stick together and stuff like that, it's too much stuff to divide us. You have social media where you got the black folks who understand that, hey, racism happened. We need to deal with it now and keep it moving. That's one set. Then you got the other set of people who, you know, they so black power that they can't stand nobody else. Then the third group of people is the people that's confused. They don't really know what's going on, so they just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna deal with the fuck I'm dealing with and keep it moving. Then you got another set of black people who just, oh, you know, that's not a big deal. It is what it is. I'm gonna always live my life the way I live it. So many sets of people separated by all these different patterns of thought. we're not able to discuss it because, well, black people, we ain't supposed to get in our feelings, and when we do get in our feelings, it's gonna be arguments. The arguments turn into fights, and now a friendly conversation turns into, I ain't talking to this person no more because they don't agree with me. What we have to do as a people, start to sit down, listen to what the person is saying. I can hear you out. Might not agree with you, but I hear you out. I hear what you're saying. I understand your thought process. I don't agree with you necessarily, but I see your points. I see the valid points that you have. Now this is my reciprocation to you in a non-physical form, in a non-threatening form, and this is just a conversation amongst black people ourselves, not even going outside of us for a second. And then when we get outside ourselves, let's not turn a blind eye to what we just had a conversation about with our own people and try to act like, oh, okay, well, this white person never did nothing to me, so I'm gonna hate you, or things like that. That just creates more of a friction between everybody. If we sit and have a conversation like, hey man, you know, white people, some white people out here that they think like, oh, well, you know, you niggers gotta stop this, that, and niggers this and niggers that, and all this complaining and all this extra shit that they say we do. And then it's the other white people who kind of got an idea of what's going on and say, hey, let's figure out a way to help. Let's sit down and have this conversation. And you got another set of white people who's sitting there like, man, get over it. It's been done with. It's dead. It's over with. It's too much. Same thing like we just talked about with the black people we have to get together. It's white people that gotta come sit at the table and have this conversation with us and other races, and just understand that we all come from different cultures and we all different in a way, but we're all human beings, and let's sit down and have these conversations because they're gonna help us in the long run. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'll be on social media and I see somebody post something pro-black, and then you'll see a Native American hop on. A white person will come on and comment, and it's probably a troll account or whatever the case may be, but they'll come on and say something like, yeah, but you know, Native Americans had it bad. They had it worse. Like, okay, but nobody asked you that though. That's neither here nor there who had it worse. We're not playing that game. Nobody cares about who had it worse. We just want recognition for what's going on. If you're fighting for what's going on, that's all that matters. You know what I'm saying? If you feel like you still are in an unjust position, you're going to keep on continuing to push for a recognition of your injustice. It's just like if two black people, a group of people having a conversation about black issues or black neglect, somebody will bring up Jewish people. Oh, Jewish people went through this, or Japanese people went through this, or Muslim people went through this. And it's like, why are we always trying to compare the negativity that happened instead of comparing the situation? Let's not even comparing. Let's work on the recognition of these situations like we've had in the past for certain people in certain situations. Like all this talk of the negativity and comparison doesn't give us anything positive to look forward to, whereas we just do a recognition and we start to understand, we can move forward. Like, hey, I've done wrong, you've done wrong, we've hurt each other, even though we physically and mentally didn't hurt each other face to face. Somewhere along the lines we had issues, and let's talk this out and let's have a conversation, and let's not just say kumbaya and get it over with, but grow in this situation. Like, there's no growth anymore. Everybody just wants instant gratification and instant recognition, and it's like, bro, white people that bring up the whole comparison thing, we've been around you for 400 years, too many generations to even try to put a number on. If all I know you as in my life is oppressing, or it seems like you're getting more representation than I am, of course I'm going to feel some type of way. Because if we're living in the land of the free and the home of equality, then when we see inequality and we see a lesser recognition of our achievements and accomplishments, of course I am going to let you know, because that's my right to let it be known that I don't agree with the status quo and the principles that we are raised upon, or we are given, or that we are supposedly supposed to be bonded by. I am going to speak on that. That's what I have the right to do. And I feel like we don't have those conversations. You know what I mean? We so woke that we sleep. I hear that a lot. We so woke that we sleep. A lot of people still sleep. A lot of people don't want to have these conversations. There's no need to have these conversations, what they say. And if you think there's no need to have these conversations, cool. That's your thought. You know, God forbid, I hope you never have to deal with a situation where you have to instantly think like, dang, if I would have just had this conversation, I would be living with these consequences. And that's and as a people, we have to understand, for everything that we miss out on, it's a consequence. It could always get deeper than that. If we don't sit here and we don't have these conversations, it could be a worse reaction later on. Back to parenting. Once again, I always bring it full circle. I tell y'all, I always bring it full circle. We started off talking about, the other podcast, the Did You Miss Me Homies, the comedians, D-Lay and Billy Sorrell. Your parents are important in your life. Your parents raise you. They give you principles, for the most part, ideals, morals to live by. If your father was a gambler, more than likely you're going to gamble. Or you're going to try so hard to resist gambling that you do other vices. If your family you come from an alcoholic family, you come from cigarette smokers, weed smokers, cocaine users, heroin users, whatever you use to try to get away from. Well, them places you're going to use another vice to try to get away from it. Whether you pray harder, whether you become very ambitious, or you talk very eloquently, because you're going to use all those vices, your talents, your skills, your hobbies, whatever, to get you to where you want to be, so that you can avoid the same pitfalls of your parents. All of us have experiences. Like I said, I talked about my father as gambling. Me, I don't gamble like that. I gamble here and there with I'll go play a ticket, bet on some games or something like that, keep it moving. Cause I know what it's like to be like, hey man, $100 in and you can't get none. I went to Atlantic City 3 or 4 times in my lifetime, and I live in New Jersey. It's not because I'm afraid to lose everything. I know the frustration of losing. My first experience of betting, and it wasn't even me that lost money, I was with my boy Mir. He was in his house. Mir used to always get everybody in trouble, because he always wanted to be. He was the leader of bullshit. He was the one to get you into some shit.